Thank you for being here, everybody. My name is Dan DeFigio. That's how you say my last name. I am a certified nutrition coach and health coach here in Nashville, Tennessee. I did a presentation for your company a year or two ago, and apparently people liked it. So they said, please come back and do some more. So here we are. Today, I'm going to talk about healthy eating, and I'm also going to talk about unhealthy eating, because that is a big problem for a lot of people. So I want to give you guys some strategies about that. So let me get to the screen share because I have a PowerPoint. What I will do is go through some of the points that I want to cover today. Feel free to interrupt me at any time because we have a small group. So just unmute yourself and jump in if you've got a question or if you need me to explain something better or anything like that. At the end, we'll have time for like open floor questions on anything else you guys want to talk about. So first, we're going to talk about healthy eating and unhealthy eating. Let me get to the screen share. Hey, Zoom has redesigned their interface, so I got to find it now.
There's been a lot of that going on.
Yeah. All right. Can you see a PowerPoint?
Yes, sir.
Fantastic. Okay. So healthy eating, everyone sort of has a basic idea about that, but I'm gonna talk about some of the specifics and the nuts and bolts of what that actually includes. As far as the unhealthy eating piece of it, that's a big umbrella. Whether you call it stress eating or sugar addiction or emotional eating urges, binging, all the yo-yo dieting people do, the on again, off again kind of stuff, that all it goes in the umbrella, as far as I'm concerned, of unhealthy eating. So we're going to talk about that second. First, healthy eating, there are a few pillars and principles, foundations, as it were, of how to eat smart. So if you're taking notes, please not while you're driving, but if you are taking notes, you can write some of these down. Number one, a big piece of the coaching process that I use is you're going to do better when you eat real food instead of processed food. There are a lot of like convenience, allegedly healthy meals, you know, your lean cuisines, your frozen stuff, that sort of thing. They may be low in calories, but those kinds of things are often just loaded with chemicals, artificial sweeteners and colors, all kind of stuff that really isn't good for you. So like the less processed you eat, the better. Ideally clean proteins, lots of vegetables and fruits, stuff that comes out of the ground. If it's got legs or dirt on it, you're doing good. You know, that's a good way to describe it. So real food instead of fake food is your primary goal. Anytime you've got a choice between something that's a real, you know, a whole natural food versus something that comes in a package, go with the real food instead. You'll do better that way. Piece two, vegetables are your primary carbohydrates. Some people are surprised to know that vegetables and fruits are carbohydrates, but they are. People tend to think of carbs just as the starches, you know, your breads, your rice, your pasta, that kind of stuff. But vegetables and fruits are carbohydrate sources also, and they should be your primary source. Vegetables in general are so high in nutrients and fiber and so low in calories that you can hardly ever make a bad pick when it comes to that. So if you focus on getting vegetables as your primary carbohydrate source, that will be a really good way to upgrade your healthy nutrition overall. Vegetables and fruits in general, I have a few notes here. I just told you that vegetables, the non-starchy vegetables, pretty much unlimited as far as how much you can eat, just because they're so low in calories and so high in nutrients. It's not quite the same for the starchy vegetables like your potatoes. They are higher in calories, but in general, your non-starchy vegetables, you never really have to worry about portions. Fruit is a little bit of a different story because fruit is also very high in nutrients and very high in fiber, but it typically has more calories than your non-starchy vegetables. So you do want to be a little bit careful with your fruit portions. 2 or 3 servings a day is a good recommendation for starters. And a serving is a piece of fruit like an apple or a banana, or a cup if it's chunked up pineapple or berries or something like that. I think a lot of times folks can get into trouble, especially late night, because one of the things that I help people with is the late night sugar cravings. And one of the good tools you can use is sort of use a healthier upgrade. So if you have a sweet craving at 8 or 9 o'clock at night, going for strawberries, for example, or cherries, if you like those, are a better choice than ice cream. You still get the sweet sensation, but you get a better version of that food. So that's a technique that you can use, but you do have to be careful of the portions. It's really easy to put in your head like, oh, fruit is healthy, it's good for you. And so you eat a gallon of it, and that's just too many calories and too much sugar. So do keep in mind the portions on the fruit. This last little bullet point that I have here is try to get at least one plant source, that's a vegetable or a fruit, every time you eat. That's a really good principle. Every time you sit down to eat, make sure you got some kind of a plant in the mix there. Any questions about that? Everybody happy? Somebody give me a thumbs up. Paul's giving me a thumbs up. Thank you. So with the vegetables and fruits, something else that is an easy upgrade for healthy eating is a big variety of different kinds of plants. There are little chemicals and substances in plants called phytonutrients. That's your dollar word for the day. And these are these compounds in plants. There are thousands and thousands of them, and we are discovering. And they all have various functions in our physiology, and they're all good for us. So in one of the things that I get a kick out of is like every year or two, there's new whiz bang superfood that comes out in the news, blueberries or acai, or one year it was broccoli, and that's the wonder food. And it's not like these things aren't good for you, but it's not like one particular plant is the end all be all, despite what the multi-level marketing people will tell you when they're trying to sell you their product that has it in it. All the plant material is good for you. So like all the vegetables and all the fruits have valuable nutrition contained in them. So variety is a key. One of the ways to get variety is to make sure you mix up the colors. To make a very broad generalization, different colors in nature equal different nutrients. So the more variety of colors that you get in your diet, the more variety of nutrients you're going to get, these different phytonutrients. So you should aim over time to go all over the color wheel: red foods, orange foods, yellow foods, green foods, blue and purple foods, white foods, even like onions, white onion. There are compounds in all the different colors that are good for you. So do your best to not get locked into just a handful of vegetables and fruits that you like and you kind of get comfortable with or get bored with. There's all kind of cool food out there to eat. So experiment a little bit, make it fun. Foundation number 3 for healthy eating is water should be your primary beverage. There's nothing wrong with coffee. There's nothing wrong with tea as long as it doesn't have a lot of additives in it. A lot of these bottled teas are loaded with sugar and other chemicals. So I go back to the real food versus fake food concept in number 1. Eat clean, regular food. But water should be your primary beverage. I think it's too easy for people to get a lot of either extra chemicals from like some of the energy drinks that are loaded up with caffeine and artificial colors and flavors and that sort of thing, or a ton of extra calories that don't really have any nutrition value, like your giant Starbucks Frappo, Moco, Choco, Chinos. If you look at what they're putting in there, some of those things have 800 calories in them and are just loaded, 100 grams of sugar, just a ridiculous amount of sugar in some of those drinks. So coffee as a concept is not necessarily a problem, but don't put a lot of junk in there. Ideally, water will be the thing that you eat or the thing that you drink mostly throughout the day. Oh, here's a little hint too. A lot of folks who have a history of drinking a lot of very flavored drinks, all these energy drinks and sweetened drinks and things like that, as they start to try to wean themselves off of that, a good tool is to take real water, regular water, and just flavor it with a little bit of fresh citrus, like lemon or lime or oranges or strawberries, whatever you like to dunk in there for flavor. If you need something flavored, if the jump from Diet Coke to plain water is too much of a jump for you, then go to water that's flavored with fruit or citrus or something. There's your tip. So foundation number 4, the combination of protein and carbohydrates. This is important because for body fat control, a lot of folks eat way too many carbohydrates and not nearly enough protein. So we want to get that closer to balanced. It'll also help stabilize your blood sugar, which helps to prevent those big spikes and drops of blood sugar and energy throughout the day. The mid-afternoon crash after a heavy carb lunch is something that'll drain your energy. It is also important to stabilize your blood sugar to help prevent diabetes, because one of the things that causes diabetes long-term is a lot of those high sugar spikes. So we don't want to have that. Long-term, a good foundation is get in the habit of having a protein source and some kind of a plant, a vegetable or a fruit, every time that you sit down to eat. That's your foundation food. And then depending on where you are and what's going on, you may decide to add something into that mix. If you want to add a starch, like some rice or a piece of bread or, half a piece of cake at dessert, something like that. Those should be add-ons. The real nuts and bolts of your healthy nutrition is the protein source and some kind of plant material. Protein and plant, I'll preach it to the day I die. It's important. Any questions? Everybody cool? Okay, moving on.
I will forever think of something with legs, something with dirt now.
Okay, something with legs. And not all protein has to have legs, like fish, for example, no legs. Eggs come from something with legs, I guess. But I'm glad you like it. It's just it's one way to think about it. Foundation number 5, portions. The amount of food that you eat matters. Calories are not the only thing when it comes to keeping your weight under control, but calories do matter. So how much food you are eating is a big piece of whether you are losing weight or gaining weight or staying the same. I have to watch this one myself personally because, I do a good job with selecting healthy foods. So my choices are good. I just like to eat a lot of food. So I got to watch out for how much that I actually eat. So that's a thing for some folks too. There is on the Beating Sugar Addiction website, I have an article that has some portion guidelines as far as, what is a serving of this and how big of a serving of protein are you supposed to have, that kind of stuff. So I have that all laid out and I'm happy to point you guys to that if you like. But my point here is that you need to be intentional with the portions that you do set out. We have a tendency in this society to use all sorts of external cues, unconscious cues that tell us to either keep eating or we're done. For example, many of us were raised to, finish everything that's on your plate, no matter what, whether you're hungry or not. That's just what you eat. So like how much you eat is not based on whether you're hungry or not. It's based on what's on your plate. And we can get into trouble that way, especially if you go to restaurants. Nowadays, they give you 2 or 3 servings of food portion wise at a restaurant. Oh, here's a quick restaurant tip, even though this isn't officially part of today's presentation. If you do find that when you eat out a lot, they bring you way too much food on a regular basis, just ask the waiter to bring a to-go box when they bring your dinner and put half of it in the box before you even start eating your entree. I promise you'll never miss the extra food, and you will have something yummy to have for lunch or dinner the next day. So that's an easy way to avoid overeating at restaurants. Just put half of whatever they give you in a box to go before you even start. One more point for intentionality around portions. Make it hard to get seconds. Make it an effort. Make it an effort to have to go get seconds. If you are having dinner at the family dinner table, don't put the serving dishes out on the table. Keep them in the kitchen. So you plate up the food, intentional portions, and sit down and eat that. And then if you want to have something else, you have to get up and go get it, as opposed to having a dish of more food just sitting in front of you, one scoop away. That'll help portion control. Foundation number 6, planning. If you want to consistently eat healthy on an ongoing basis, you have to plan your food in advance. Some people like to plan out a week at a time, like they take Sunday as their prep and shop day. That's fine. I do mine for the following day. So like before I go to sleep every night, I know what I'm going to eat for every meal the next day. That's how I do mine. It doesn't matter how you plan. It just matters that you plan. You have to have some idea of what you're going to eat and approximately when. You want to set yourself up for success to make healthy eating easy. If you leave yourself at the mercy of whatever's lying around in the break room, or whatever you can grab fast at a drive-through on the way home at 7:30 p.m. when you're starving, you are going to have a very hard time making smart, healthy decisions on a regular basis. So if you bring a healthy lunch to work, or if you know you're going to go out for lunch or are going to go out for dinner, have an idea in your head in advance about what you're going to do, how you're going to feed yourself next time. It literally only takes 2 minutes. When you practice it a little bit, it takes about 2 minutes to plan your food for the next day. So don't tell me you don't have time to plan, because it really is not a time sink at all. And it makes a huge difference in how easy or difficult it is to make decisions about how you're feeding yourself. So make life easy on yourself. Plan ahead, set yourself up, have healthy food handy in the refrigerator at home. Take stuff with you to work that you know you want to be eating, instead of, donuts and cookies that people are bringing that you don't want to be eating. Make it easy. It's hard enough. Life is hard enough. We don't need to add donuts and bacon to that on purpose. All right. Planning is so important because it's one of the only ways to be proactive instead of reactive. The biggest problem that I see overall, like a big overarching problem that I see from folks in my nutrition coaching practice, is being reactive. Whether that is, oh my God, I didn't plan anything to eat, I'm starving, what am I going to grab? That's being reactive. Or stress eating, emotional eating, I'm having a hard time, therefore I'm going to eat these cookies because I've had a bad day and that'll make my day better. So all of those kinds of reactive issues are generally, I think I could put that as the number one obstacle to nutrition and health for folks. So what we want to do is to try to be proactive, do things on purpose instead of being reactive. When you plan, you can make healthy choices. You have your portions controlled, and it's easy to have a good variety. We talked about that earlier. So all 3 of those things are really easy when you take 2 minutes to plan ahead. If you don't do that, then you get into trouble because you make poor choices. You get impulsive. You use these external cues, like we talked about, how much food is in front of you, or I'm going to keep eating the French fries until they're all gone. It doesn't matter if I've had enough fries or not. Impulsive things to eat. Have you ever heard of the seafood diet? SEE food. That's I see food and I eat it. That's the seafood diet. And I'll remind you also that the convenience food stuff that you can grab quick very often is low nutrition, highly processed stuff. Not to say that you can't get healthy food quick, because it is out there. That's one of the things that has gotten a little bit better over the last 10 or 15 years. There are some places that can get you something reasonably healthy to go, or at a drive-through. Shoot, even McDonald's and Wendy's have salads now, so you could at least get a vegetable out of the deal, even if you're in a pinch. The last piece of the foundation that I have is to be purposeful with the stuff that is not very good for you. Desserts and sugars, alcohol, if you like French fries or chicken nuggets or fried foods like that, all the things that we know in our head are not really good for us. The approach I take with teaching nutrition is there is nothing that is totally off limits and nothing is forbidden, because I don't think that we ought to approach it like that. But you do have to be intentional and purposeful about when you have these foods that are either actively bad for you, like the fried food, or foods that are high in calories and low in nutrients, aren't really bad for you per se, but not great for as far as nutrition, like pizza, or some of the snack chips and pretzels and things like that. They're not actively hurtful, but they're not the best picks. So you have to be intentional about when you decide you're going to do this. One of the things that I suggest is don't put stuff in the house that you don't really want to eat. If you have your pantry loaded up with cookies and sweets and candy and things that you don't really want to eat or you shouldn't be eating, every time you open the pantry and you see it, you have to make a yes or no decision. And that's making life really hard on yourself. Same goes for like a candy bowl out at work on your desk or in the break room or something like that. Every time you walk by that, you have this visual stimulus and you have to say, oh, do I want to eat that or do I not want to eat that? So make life easy on yourself and don't put things in your house that you don't want to eat. I like ice cream, for example. That is my go-to junk food. When I decide to get ice cream and I really want some, then I'm going to go get some. I have to go out and I get it. I don't keep it stocked in the freezer all the time so that every time I open up the freezer, it's looking at me. I have it set, it's elsewhere. So if I really want some, which is fine, when you really want some, go get it. But don't make it easy to do it every day, because that becomes a problem. So bad stuff on purpose. That's the dumbed down version. We all cool with these foundation concepts?
Yes, sir.
The last piece that I want to touch on is dealing with emotional eating. Emotional eating is an umbrella term for all of these reactive and impulsive eating urges that we have. Sugar cravings, stress eating, all those kinds of emotional reactive things that we turn to food for. A big piece of my coaching is about that. I'm actually the guy who wrote Beating Sugar Addiction for Dummies. So I literally wrote the book on sugar addiction. A big piece of my day-to-day coaching with people is around the psychology of food and emotional eating and stress eating issues. So getting a handle on that is very important on an ongoing basis, because if you have sort of a standard, relatively healthy diet, but every time something difficult or emotional happens in your life, then you shoot yourself in the foot with piles and piles of bad food, long term, you're not helping yourself. So these kinds of, what should we call them, episodes that folks will go through on a regular basis. If you lose control of how you feed yourself every time something emotional or difficult or stressful happens, you're going to have a hard time nutrition wise and health wise. So it's really important to get a handle on emotional eating and stress eating impulses, if that's a thing for you. How do you know? Well, any reactive eating from an emotional standpoint is a problem. I made this, can you see this little column I got here? On the left side, when you're actually hungry physically, it comes on gradually, comes and goes. When you're hungry, you're open to different kinds of foods. You notice that, oh, I'm hungry because I feel it in my stomach. Or you feel it, maybe you notice your blood sugar's getting low, something like that. Physical hunger can wait, it's not urgent. When you are hungry physically, you're using your grown-up brain that says, okay, I'm going to make a decision and I'm aware of what I'm eating. And you stop eating when you've had enough. And then when you are done, it's like, oh, that was good. I am no longer hungry. So that is what we want on the left column. On the right column is the emotional version of that. And it comes on not gradually, but it comes on very suddenly and very reactively. Oh, I'm stressed out. I'm having an emotional reaction. I want that donut. It's an impulse. And there's usually a craving for something specific, like sugar or whatever your comfort food is. These kinds of things are triggered from emotions and feelings, not from actual hunger. There is an urgency to it. It's like it's going to happen right now. There's not when I get home, I'm going to have my cookie. It's like right now, because I'm upset, I'm going to have this cookie. There is always automatic and impulsive stuff. There's not deliberate choices. It's subconscious, and we'll talk about that in just a couple of minutes. Whether you're full or not has no effect on what you are doing. When it's emotional eating, you're just doing it because it's completely detached from your hunger physiology. And unfortunately, when you are finished with the comfort food binge, then you typically feel bad about it. You feel guilty. There's shame, there's guilt, there's bloat, there is misery, as opposed to being satisfied. So is my goal to make sure everybody stays over here on the left, on the healthy side of hunger, and not the emotional side of eating. Why do we do this? We all know that a mixed green salad is better for us than a box of donuts, but we don't do it. Why? Here's why. If you're taking notes, these are the two things to write down. Number one, we use food as a substitute for something that we are seeking emotionally. Sometimes we use other things besides food. I mean, the whole foundation of alcoholism or drug abuse or whatever is this, so food is just one of the many substances that we use as a substitute for something emotional. Here's a real common scenario. Somebody got something? No? A real common scenario that I use in the interviews that I give and stuff, because I hear it all the time. Let's say you're having a terrible day at work. You're all stressed out, you're behind, you got deadlines, you're not going to make it, your boss is yelling at you, your kid's sick at home, it's just been a terrible, terrible day. And then you reach for the donuts because you're stress eating. So in that particular situation, hey, I'm going to pause here and mute everybody. I thought I did. I'm sorry. Where is that now? Where is the mute everybody button? I can't find it. Who knows the new interface? All right, mute yourselves if you would, please. I'll mute everybody individually, I guess. All right, there we go. Sorry for that delay. So in the I'm stressed out at work situation, what you're probably seeking from an emotional standpoint is some feeling of peacefulness or being calm or being in control, perhaps. And we pretend that eating a donut is going to help us become peaceful or give us control. And food can't give you that. So I brought this, I put this little graphic together that shows that. Like, we have this trigger. I'm upset. I'm feeling whatever it is that is uncomfortable that you're feeling, whether you're feeling anxious or fearful or depressed or angry or whatever the uncomfortable emotion is. We have this habit of stuffing food when we have that. What we're feeling goes unnoticed. What we really want is unnoticed. And what we should do to break this cycle instead is, we have the trigger. Oh, I'm upset. I'm stressed out. Then we have just a 1 second pause. You pause there for just a second and evaluate. Okay, that's your red flag. Well, I really want to reach for the donut because I've had a crappy day. So give me 1 or 2 seconds just to sit and think about, what is it that I really want here? Because what you really want is not junk food. What you really want is something from an emotional standpoint. And the cool thing about doing this right here, my friends, is that you don't have to come up with the answer. Just the act of inserting this 1 or 2 second pause between the trigger and what you do is enough to break that unconscious habit. And now we are in the grown-up part of our brain. For you neurology nerds, it's called the prefrontal cortex, where we actually make decisions in a grown-up place. We put our grown-up pants on and make decisions. And then you can decide what you're going to do, because you're not being reactive. You're being purposeful. So this is your big takeaway for stress eating and emotional eating. This right here, this little graphic, is what you want to do. When you get triggered, instead of just jumping to the behavior mindlessly, insert that 1 or 2 second pause and just take a little inventory and say, I'm really upset. What do I really want here? And you don't, like I said, you don't have to have the answer. That's the cool thing about this. Reason number 2 for emotional eating and stress reactive eating is the easy one, and it's a simple distraction. As humans, we go through a variety of emotions all day, every day. And a lot of them don't feel very good. Sometimes we get upset, we get depressed, we get guilty and ashamed, we get lonely, we get bored, we get angry, we get fearful. It's like all these different emotions that we have throughout the day that don't feel very good. So the part of our brain that drives until we learn how to do something different is going to do just about anything to get us to feel better and not feel those uncomfortable feelings. So a lot of times food, or sometimes other substances like alcohol or drugs or gambling or whatever, is just a distraction. It gives you something else to focus on for 2 minutes. So if you are home by yourself and you're feeling lonely and unlovable and having a terrible night, and you dive into the gallon of ice cream, your brain is like, cool, I'm going to think about this ice cream for the next 2 or 3 minutes instead of how bad I'm feeling. So it's just a simple distraction. So the way that you get around the distraction piece of it is you come up with a couple things that are healthier distractions, things that you enjoy doing, or things that will engage your mind a little bit, that will give you that break that your limbic system is seeking, as far as, giving yourself a break from feeling the bad feelings, the difficult feelings. So if you only have food in your toolbox every time you feel bad, then you're very, very limited in your distraction, because then you're down to, well, Do I eat this food, or do I try to willpower myself through and not do this? So what I try to encourage folks to do for starters is expand your toolbox. So you have several tools that are not food, that are not bad for you, as your distraction. Maybe you like to read, maybe you like to take a walk, maybe you play with the dog, maybe you like to, I don't know, write something, or if you're creative, compose something, do some journaling. People like to, connect with their friends, either call them up on the phone or send them a Facebook message or whatever. There's a gazillion things you can do to entertain yourself that don't involve eating food. So make yourself a short list of 3 or 4 things, even if you only have one other thing, and you do it every other time. Let's say that your one thing is reading, and you like that. So you got food and reading as your 2 distractions. So if you do reading every other time, you've already cut your stress eating in half, just from that one extra tool that you do every other time. So it's a big upgrade to do even like I said, even 50% of the time. It's a big upgrade. So do whatever you can do whenever you can do it. If you want help with this stuff. Oh, and by the way, I got some free stuff on the website. Go to beatingsugaraddiction.com. I've got guidebooks and handouts that are there for free for how to beat sugar cravings and how to manage stress eating, and some stuff we talked about. I've got it written up in a little book. So get that for free. And if you need assistance with any of this kind of stuff, by all means, let me know. I am here to help. So that is the prepared material that I have for you. So I'm ready to open up the floor to any questions or clarifications or complaints or whatever you guys want to talk about. I'm here for you. Hit me.
I definitely do not have any complaints.
Well, that's nice. Nobody got anything? Anybody want to ask about anything? Picks for the NFL playoffs? Want to talk football? What? Automotive repair? What else we got? All right. Well, it was a joy getting a chance to talk with you folks again. It's nice to be here. You've got my contact information. The easiest thing to do if you need me for anything, go to the beatingsugaraddiction.com website. That's headquarters for me. So you can just drop me a note or a voicemail or an email or whatever. And we'll talk if you need help with any of this stuff.
Thank you so much for coming today.
I hope you have a splendid rest of the week. Thanks for bringing me in again.
Absolutely. Have a great day.
Bye all.
Thanks, Dan.